Thank you. Not all questions amuse me, but this one does. Play the part of Haddon Robinson. Distill the encounter at the well to a homiletical idea. I would never dream of playing the part of Haddon Robinson. He's a great preacher. And furthermore, we're not talking about distilled water, right? However, the homiletical idea is that Jesus shares the truth of who he is with a needy woman, something like that. Haddon might do much better, I'm sure he would, but I don't have any more time on that. In what sense was the woman a believer in Jesus Christ? In what sense did the woman believe in Jesus Christ, gives everlasting life? Did she because she was know she was eternally secure at that point? Whence cometh this question? The one thing that the woman gets first in this discourse is, whatever this gift is, it's permanent. I won't have to come back here, and I won't have to draw water. When she finally realized that it was what Messiah gave, she obviously knew it was permanent. Draw your own conclusions. Thank you. To disbelieve that he is the Christ is to reject him as the spring of life. To believe that he is the Christ, to believe that he is the spring of life, right? Yes. In what verse did the woman believe in Jesus for eternal life? That was my problem when I wrote The Hungry Inherit. There is no statement in the text that she believed, right? But we know that she did believe by the response to her testimony on the part of the Samaritan men. Since there is no statement of her belief, there's no verse in which the statement is found, right? But we should draw the conclusion that when Jesus said to her, I who speak to you am he, that she believed it. And when she believed it, even if it's between verses, she got everlasting life. So this is not a question that really pertains to the point here. We have a tendency in evangelical circles to want some articulation of belief, some expression of belief. We want a raised hand, or somebody come down forward, or, the whole ball of wax. We have forgotten that people get saved by just hearing the gospel and believing it right where they sit, right where they stand. The sooner we get back to that realization, the better off we will be. Let's see, next question. Do you believe that the requirements of what must be believed for salvation was different before or after the cross? I think the questioner means, were they different before Jesus died on the cross, during his lifetime, before he died on the cross, and then after he died on the cross? Of course not. The gospel of the New Testament is the gospel preached by Jesus. Nobody changed it. And anybody who changes it now is not preaching the gospel that Jesus preached. There's an IE on here. Could the woman at the well simply believe that Jesus was the Christ and be saved, and now must people believe that he paid for their sins? The woman believed in Jesus as the giver and guarantor of everlasting life. That's what it takes to be saved now. If the question implies, would I preach the cross to people, I certainly would. Because what I find in preaching to people is that they don't really understand why it should be so easy until they hear that Jesus Christ died on the cross for them, paid for their sins, and rose again from the dead. So that's a part of the message that I preach. But basically, the Gospel of John shows us that people are regenerated when they believe that Jesus is the one who guarantees everlasting life to them. What does scintilla mean? That is the cleverest question of the day. I'm almost willing to give my trophy away for that. Thank you. But not quite. Scintilla means the smallest, tiniest thing you can imagine. All right? Does the fact that Jesus suggests that the woman would ask Jesus for living water imply that volition can be involved in a person choosing to believe in Jesus, i.e., we ask Jesus to save us? On its face, the answer to that is no. However, it is very clear in the New Testament, it seems to me, that the will is involved in terms of my willingness to receive the truth or to consider it or to hear it again or to search the Scriptures. Now there, we're not talking about the act of faith, we're talking about the decision to look for whether this is true or not. The Bereans searched the Scriptures daily to see whether these things were so. That was an act of volition. But when they saw they were so, they believed it. That is not an act of volition. So it depends on what the questioner meant exactly by that. He will tell us all things. Is that an explicit scriptural statement, an implication of scriptural truth, or a Samaritan teaching from whatever source that Jesus exploited and is true? Well, I would say that obviously this involved the Samaritan doctrine of the Messiah, and that it is deducible from the Old Testament testimony about Messiah. There may not be an explicit verse on it, but I don't see anything basically wrong with that. The Messiah, after all, even in the Old Testament, was God. Who else can tell us all things? So I think whatever her frame of reference was, it was technically correct, even though if we had explored her theology at the moment, we might have found fault with it. But what potential convert doesn't bring flawed theology to the moment of saving faith? And the important thing is that they get the basic truth that Jesus is the Christ and guarantees the permanent gift of life. That's all, folks. Thank you for your attention and for your questions.